Despite its unrivaled off-road capabilities, buying an overpriced Jeep Wrangler with a 3.6-liter V6 Pentastar engine will get you a poorly built vehicle whose engine has fatal design flaws, a four-wheel drive system that's notoriously fault-prone, and a steering system that causes an extremely dangerous and uncontrollable condition known as the death wobble. In addition, buying a Jeep Wrangler will get you a vehicle that is extremely noisy on the road, has no tech worth mentioning in lower trim levels, and has an electrical system that can, and often does, leave drivers stranded in dangerous situations without any warning. Keep watching this video until the end as we reveal 5 reasons why you should not buy a Jeep Wrangler. Number 5. Engine wear caused by dry starts. Saying that the 3.6 Pentastar engine has serious design flaws is an understatement, even though this engine is used in about 25 different Chrysler vehicles. It's not so much that this engine is underpowered for use in a serious off-road vehicle such as the Jeep Wrangler, because it develops a healthy 305 horsepower and 268 pound-feet of torque at its maximum tune level. The problem with the 3.6-liter Pentastar engine is that it has several built-in flaws and shortcomings that have persisted throughout its long production run. Let's take a look at some of this engine's main issues in turn, starting with a dry start happens when critical engine parts are not lubricated when the engine starts. In the case of the 3.6-liter Pentastar engine, the oil filter and oil cooler sit on top of the engine, and because these components are not fitted with a check valve, the oil both in the filter and oil cooler drains down to the oil pan in about 35 minutes or so after the engine is switched off, leaving the camshafts and other valve train components without proper lubrication. So since both the oil filter and the oil cooler are empty when the engine starts again, it takes about 3 to 4 seconds for the oil pump to refill the filter and oil cooler, during which time the camshafts and valve train operate without adequate lubrication. During each dry start, the camshafts and especially the rocker arms sustain a little damage, and although this damage will not cause the valve train to fail in the first few years of use, the damage is cumulative, and at about the 60,000 mile mark, the mechanical wear caused by many dry starts start to show in the form of loud ticking noises from the rocker arms. If this condition is allowed to persist, the ticking noises will transition into misfires and a general loss of power that will ultimately require the replacement of all the camshafts and rocker arms to resolve, which can run to several $1,000s. In the interest of fairness, we must state that this form of damage does not occur on all 3.6 Pentastar engines, but then again, the issue is so common on these engines that several developers and manufacturers of aftermarket parts have developed adapters that contain a check valve to prevent oil from draining from the oil filter and cooler. Fitting this device will eliminate dry starts and subsequent excessive engine wear, but one wonders why Chrysler has never thought of developing a solution to dry engine starts. Number 4. Cooling system failures. Somewhat archaically, Chrysler still casts the cylinder heads of the Pentastar engine in sand as opposed to sacrificial baked clay molds. While casting in sand molds has major cost savings, the problem with this method is that in many cases, some foundry sand remains in the cylinder heads even after final machining and cleaning in the factory. So as the coolant circulates through the engine, it releases extremely abrasive foundry sand into the coolant circulation pattern, and this sand eventually destroys the water pump and even the thermostat. In severe cases, the released foundry sand can also clog the radiator, which can lead to fatal engine overheating. However, it should be noted that not all Pentastar engines suffer cooling system failures caused by foundry sand, although this problem is fairly common. In fact, many owners of Jeep Wranglers with 3.6-liter Pentastar engines report that they have never experienced cooling system issues of any kind on their Jeep Wranglers, but on the other hand, there are no guarantees that the Jeep Wrangler you buy will not develop cooling system issues caused by foundry sand. Number 3. Death wobble. It's often said that the death wobble is a uniquely Jeep thing, and Jeep Wranglers from any production year are certainly not immune from developing a potentially fatal case of the death wobble. Let's look at the death wobble in some detail. The large and very heavy wheels of Jeep Wranglers place extreme demands on suspension and steering components, such as tie rod ends and ball joints, among others. In practice, tie rod ends and ball joints are particularly susceptible to the heavy loads the large wheels place on them, and as a result, these components wear out much sooner than they would have done on vehicles with smaller and lighter wheels. So at a certain point, the tie rod ends and ball joints develop excess amounts of free play that are greatly increased by the weight of the front wheels. At this point, the tie rod ends and ball joints can no longer control the side-to-side movement of the wheels, so the wheels begin to oscillate violently from side to side relative to the dead-ahead position at certain speeds. In severe cases, the frequencies at which the front wheels oscillate from side to side begin to resonate, meaning that each oscillation from one side increases the oscillation on the other side. This condition is known as death wobble, which is apt because the oscillation of the front wheels can become impossible to control and usually ends with the driver losing control over the vehicle. Although the death wobble could occur at almost any time during high-speed cruising, it's often not possible to detect excessive free play display in steering and suspension components during a routine scheduled inspection of the Jeep Wrangler. So as a practical matter, the only warning Jeep Wrangler owners often get that they have been driving with excessively worn steering or suspension components is when they experience a death wobble condition, from which they may not be able to recover. Number 2. Wind noise and poor build quality. Excessive wind noise at highway speeds is to be expected given that aerodynamics was not the Jeep Wrangler's design engineer's top priority. The boxy shape of Jeep Wranglers causes so much wind noise that normal conversation inside the vehicle becomes almost impossible. But then again, the primary purpose of Jeep Wranglers is to conquer extreme off-road obstacles at low speeds as opposed to being a comfortable daily driver. However, it is in the off-road environment that some serious build quality issues come to the fore. Apart from transfer case failures caused by poor design and construction, the electrical system is particularly susceptible to all manner of failures caused by vibration and ingress of dirt and water into the wiring and fuse boxes. For instance, deep water crossings can cause the headlights and all the other lights for that matter to stop working, or worse, cause short circuits in the engine's wiring, which almost always immobilizes the engine. The effects of water ingress into wiring can take days to repair, so be aware that while Jeep Wranglers can conquer mountains with relative ease, Jeep Wranglers can also easily drown while crossing deep water obstacles, which defeats much of the purpose for which Jeep Wranglers are built in the first place. Number 1. Overpriced and poor value for money. Unless you're a die-hard Jeep Wrangler fan, it's difficult to justify the exorbitant price of any Jeep Wrangler model, new or used, given the model range's high number of recalls over critical safety and reliability issues during the past 2 years, and the litany of reliability issues reported by owners of Jeep Wranglers. So, given that the sticker price for a new base model Jeep Wrangler Sport is $33,890, and the sticker price for the top-of-the-line Rubicon 392 Final Edition, whose exclusive V8 engine achieves a fuel consumption value of only 13 miles per gallon, is $101,890, the Jeep Wrangler model ranges produced over the last few years seem like a poor value proposition. Moreover, given that the current mid-range Jeep Wrangler Rubicon X has a basic price tag of $58,640, one would not expect issues like vague and imprecise responses to steering inputs, an extremely unreliable stop-and-go system, a truck-like ride quality on paved roads, and water leaking through the body panels into the interior to be as common as they are across the entire range of Jeep Wrangler models. Nonetheless, not all Jeep Wrangler models will necessarily suffer all of the failures Jeep Wranglers have become famous for. In fact, many of these Jeep Wranglers have provided their owners with trouble-free service for many years and will likely do so for many more years. However, the operative words are not all Jeep Wrangler models, with the implication being that some buyers will pay an exorbitant price for a Jeep Wrangler that could spend as much time in repair shops as it does on the road. Based on this fact, we highly recommend that you carefully assess your needs and wants with regard to why you want or need a Jeep Wrangler to avoid buying a potentially bottomless money pit along with your Jeep Wrangler. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.